So I want to show you a couple of clips from last night's debate where Joe Biden was caught in a lie, and Bernie Sanders masterfully backed him into a corner and wouldn't let him out and got him to admit that he was lying. So when it comes to the issue of Social Security, Biden has repeatedly denied that he ever floated cuts to Social Security. In fact, he once accused Bernie Sanders' team of doctoring a video of him where he says very clearly, you can watch the video, that he wants to cut Social Security. Now, what Bernie Sanders did was get him to basically admit that he was open to it. Now, he still denied it after he admitted it in this debate. Nonetheless, I think that it was very clear what was happening here. Joe Biden showed his cards, and Bernie Sanders played this very well. Take a look.
Joe, let me repeat it again. I want you just to be straight with the American people. I am saying that you have been on the floor of the Senate time and time again talking about the need to cut Social Security, Medicare, and veterans programs. Is that true or is that not true?
No, it's not true.
That is not true?
That is not true. What is true is, in terms of the negotiations that are taking place, how to deal with the deficit, everything was on the table. I did not support any of those cuts in Social Security or in veterans benefits.
Whoa. Everything was on the table. All right, you're right. You just said it, including, in your judgment, cuts to Social Security and veterans.
In order to get the kinds of changes we need on other things related.
Joe, then
but we did not cut it.
I know, because people like me helped stop that. But Joe, you just contradicted yourself. One minute you said I was not on the floor. The next minute you say, well, yes, there was a reason why I was worried about the deficit. Maybe that's good reason, maybe it's not. All that I am saying is you were prepared to cut and advocated for the cuts of programs.
I did not. I never voted to cut Social Security.
Not talking about voted, Joe. That's not what I said.
Well, look, I voted to protect it. Just go look at the debate with Paul Ryan for the vice presidency. Look at what I did. And Bernie, will you acknowledge your campaign took out of context that whole exchange between Paul Ryan? Are you saying PolitiFact is wrong? Are you saying
believe me, the Washington Post PolitiFact is wrong a whole lot of times.
But are they wrong on that, Bernie?
Okay.
Are they wrong on that, Bernie? Bernie, did you miss?
Wait a minute. I'll answer your question. You answer mine.
I answered yours.
No, you didn't.
All right.
One more time. Were you on the floor time and time again, for whatever reason, talking about the need to cut Social Security and Medicare and veterans programs?
No, I did not talk about the need to cut any of those programs.
Okay, all that I would say to the American people, go to YouTube. It's all over the place. Joe said it many, many times, and I'm surprised, you can defend that or change your mind on it, but you can't deny the reality.
So, Senator, because you brought up Social Security and you've been talking about it, I want to ask you about something that you wrote in 1996. You were a member of the House. And you wrote an op-ed that said, quote, "It is clear we will have to make incremental adjustments in Social Security taxes and benefits."
Yeah.
Why are your past comments any less relevant than
incremental adjustments? What I advocated, adjustments that I advocated and have advocated for years, is, among other things, increasing the cost of living assistance. No, you're not going to find me ever calling for cuts to Social Security.
I mean, what do you even say to that? If you watch that and you don't see how disingenuous Joe Biden is being, I don't know what to say. Like, he admitted there he was open to cutting Social Security. I never said I'd cut Social Security, Bernie Sanders. You're lying. All I said was that I was open to put everything on the table, including Social Security, which I specifically named and called a sacred cow, but I never said I'd cut Social Security. Wait, you just admitted that everything was on the table, including Social Security. But you don't want to cut Social Security? Like, this really, I think, should show people how easy it is for politicians to just outright lie and use doublespeak. No, I never said the words specifically verbatim, I want to cut Social Security, therefore I never floated cuts to Social Security.
Sure, Jan.
Now, what I love is that once he was backed into the corner, he tried to get out of that by basically saying, well, look, I never did cut Social Security in actuality. And I'm paraphrasing, even if he proposed cuts, it never happened. And then Bernie Sanders came in with a death blow and said, because I stopped that from happening. Brilliantly played by Bernie Sanders. That was phenomenal. And this is what Bernie Sanders needed to do, because Joe Biden has the support of older voters, and they don't realize that by voting for Joe Biden, they are voting against their own self-interest, because this is someone who has throughout the years said he's open to cutting Social Security. Now, you can choose to not believe that in spite of all of the evidence that's online. Go to the YouTube to find it, as Bernie Sanders put it, but he's been saying he wants to cut Social Security. Not necessarily that he wants to do it, but he's open to do it. And if he's in power, what would Republicans want to do? Of course, they'd want to cut it under a Democratic administration so they can blame Democrats for it and then boast to the public, we never supported cuts to Social Security. We voted to cut Social Security, but it was a Democratic president who cut Social Security. Now, what irritated me to no end was how Dana Bash came through and basically implied that Bernie wanted to cut Social Security. She said, well, Bernie, you floated adjustments to Social Security. Now, she didn't provide you with that additional context that what Bernie Sanders meant by adjustments was that we need to increase the standard of living for recipients of Social Security, lift the cap on taxable income so its solvent even longer in the future. And that's just, it shows how the media tries to manufacture consent, because a lot of people point to Joe Biden using that code word adjustments, right? And back in the 90s, Bernie Sanders did say we need to make adjustments to Social Security. So what they tried to do when the story originally came up was say, aha, gotcha, Bernie, because you and your team said adjustments is code for cuts, but you said adjustment. Except the problem is that if you follow the word adjustment and see what else he said after that, follow the entire sentence to its conclusion, you'd see that he said specifically how to adjust it. When politicians say adjust it and they leave it vague, that means cuts usually, because we've been dealing with this for decades. Wall Street has been salivating over Social Security. They want to cut it. So we've had to be incredibly vigilant and look out for doublespeak, look out for code words or weasel words, as Kyle Kulinski would put it, when politicians, they say something, but they try not to reveal their true colors to the public when we know what they actually are intending to do. But overall, this was a great move by Bernie Sanders. Now, another move that was just so painfully bad for Joe Biden, it was cringeworthy, was when the subject of super PACs came up. Now, to give you some additional context, because I'm not going to play the entire clip because it would be too long, Bernie Sanders was talking about the power structures in America, right? That the reason why Americans are losing their voice, the reason why politicians are almost exclusively doing the bidding of their corporate donors is because of the power structures in the country. Large multinational corporations and billionaires, they buy off politicians, hence why all of the policy outcomes reflect their interests. So, Bernie Sanders, he tacitly implied that Joe Biden's financial contributions are the reason why we're in this state. Not just Joe Biden, but all of the politicians. And Joe Biden is, just a pawn in the game that's being played to rig the rules against normal Americans. And Joe Biden basically tried to pivot by saying, well, look, if you're trying to point to, my campaign contributions, I haven't taken more than $2,800, which is when Bernie Sanders correctly identified the problem is that there are these super PACs that flood campaigns with dark money, to which Joe Biden then tried to accuse Bernie of also having super PACs. Didn't go too well, as you're going to see.
And the implication is I've not accepted a contribution from anybody over $2,800, number one. My average contribution is $44. Just this month, I've raised $33 million. Average contribution, $51. The idea that this is Bernie's implication is somehow I'm being funded by millionaires. Bernie, look, in the last Super Tuesday and before that, Bernie outspent me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. And I still won. I didn't have any money. And I still won.
Senator Sanders?
It's good that you had an idea 30 years ago. I don't want to join you. Why don't you join me? Why don't you get rid of the super PAC that you have right now, which is running very ugly negative ads about me, by the way. Don't laugh, Joe. That's just the truth. And they got 2 other super PACs running ads against us. Why don't you just say right now, go on television and say, hey, you know what? I think in the past, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, you condemned super PACs. Is that correct?
You get rid of the 9 super PACs you have?
I don't have 9 super. I don't have any super PACs.
You want me to list them?
No. Yeah, you go ahead. List them.
Okay, come on. Give me a break.
No, I won't give you a break on this one, Joe. You condemned super PACs. You got a super PAC. It's running negative. But here's the point. This is the point. in the richest country in the history of the world, half of our people should not be struggling to put food on the table. And the reason for that is you have a political structure in which big money interests not only dominate the political system, but dominate our economy as well. Somebody makes a decision, we're going to shut down a factory in America, we're going to move to China, we're going to move to Mexico, pay people starvation wages there. This is an issue that has got to be ultimately dealt with. Who has the power in America? Are we content with so few exercising so much power when so many people have given up on the political process?
That was really embarrassing. That was perhaps the worst moment of the debate for Joe Biden. Are you going to condemn the 9 super PACs that you have, Bernie? You want me to name them? Bernie Sanders then says, yes, name them. And then Joe Biden says, give me a break. So he tried to play chicken with Bernie Sanders, and he backed down immediately. This tells you everything you need to know about Joe Biden. Now, it's funny because this is the same lie that Elizabeth Warren used against Bernie Sanders and the rationale for her getting her own super PAC. Well, Bernie has super PACs. So it's it's only fair that I get my own super PAC. When what they were referring to as super PACs were Our Revolution, Sunrise Movement, Dream Defenders, organizations funded by either their members, like the National Nurses United PAC, which is technically a PAC, or grassroots donations like Sunrise Movement. So they're trying to suggest that these are dark money groups. That's what Pete Buttigieg did as well, because they want to hide their own corruption. But what it did was make them look like disingenuous fools. And when you try to play that game with Bernie Sanders, sometimes you end up fucking yourself over. That's what happened with Joe Biden. That's what happened when you tried to call out Bernie Sanders' super PACs, and you end up looking foolish. So these 2 clips were my favorite moments from the debate. It really made Bernie Sanders look strong, and I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that people see through Joe Biden, right? See how disingenuous he was, because he didn't display how he was in cognitive decline. He hit it well enough for that 2-hour debate, which is astonishing. Nonetheless, I think he hit it well, but he still proved how much of a liar and disingenuous, regular, standard politician he is, saying and doing anything to get ahead. And I really hope that the voters see that, in watching this debate, if they did watch it.
Alpha male, not a beta male.